To guide this important conversation, please join me in welcoming our moderator, Brian Vosberg. The Spiritist speaker since 2005, promoting Spiritism through lectures in several states and at a national Spiritist symposium. Professionally, Brian is a licensed civil engineer and works as a project administrator. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks again. Before we get started with our panelists, just a friendly reminder, you can submit your questions at any time during the presentation, either by using the QR code shown, which is still out to lunch, or the screen, or by sending a written questions to one of our volunteers. Now, back to the introductions. Gabriel Macedo is a member of the Spiritist Center Chico Xavier in Florida. He supports the International Spiritist Council Youth Committee and has spoken at several Spiritist symposia. A pianist since age 7, Gabriel combines his love for music and Spiritism to uplift and inspire people of all ages. Please welcome Gabriel. Leah Gouveia is an active worker in the U.S. Spiritist movement and a board member of the Spiritist Society of North Beach in Maryland since its incorporation in 2009. Currently, she is serving as president of this society. Professionally, Leah manages enterprise applications. Please welcome Leah. Our masters of prayers this morning, Marshall-Netto is a dedicated Spiritist worker, committed to expanding the presence and understanding of Spiritism in the United States. He currently serves as Vice President of the Spiritist Federation of Florida, President of Leal and Feb Publisher, and Vice President of the Conscious Living Spiritist Group in Florida. Please welcome back to the stage, Marcelo. And the last member of our panel, Rebecca DaSilva, is an undergraduate student at UNC Chapel Hill and certified nursing assistant. Since 2017, she has been active in the youth group at the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Maryland. Rebecca hopes to apply the Spiritist teachings in her personal life and future career as a travel nurse. Please welcome Rebecca. When we were starting this one, we have practical tools for elevating consciousness. We all know that we're all here today, the spiritual component that goes with it. And we understand that as a general aspect. But we have been having trouble coming down with practical tools. How can we apply things in our day-to-day lives? So to start us off, we're going to talk about the concept of prayer with Rebecca and Marcelo. Rebecca?
Hi. I hope all of you had a great lunch. So to begin my topic with prayer, I just really want to talk about the sincerity of it. The sincerity of prayer and just how influential your heart is in prayer instead of your lips. I think people do forget that often. God does know your intentions truly, and being vulnerable with him through prayer is a great way for you to grow closer to him. So I would really appreciate that in prayer. Additionally, prayer is a tool where you can just learn how to self-reflect, first of all, see what you need to work on, ask God to help you, and just ask for mentorship through that.
Hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I really enjoy what Rebecca mentioned about prayer. And this is something that we quite often we see in the study groups. People are like, well, I don't have the ability to pray. I wish I have this power. I wish I have the way that you guys, they think like we are so far away, so elevated, but we, as we saw here, in all the lectures, we fluctuate sometimes. It's just like adjusting the Wi-Fi properly so we can understand that everything is within. We all maybe pretty much pretty much everybody here, we work in the Spiritist centers and with Spiritist groups, and even in churches and temples, sometimes we need advice, and we knock on, for example, asking for a priest or a minister or someone that work at the center, trying to understand exactly the nature of struggles and everything that we are going through. And we ask to talk to someone. And this person, okay, let's have a conversation. And we sit down together and we have this conversation, exchanging ideas, listening first what the person is going through and willing to share with us. Try to imagine that God is right in front of you and have a simple conversation. It doesn't have to be memorized words. It doesn't have to be in a pattern that we belong to so many traditions, and of course, and that's why we are so much attached to the format instead of the feelings. But when we pray, you simply open your heart and ask for help. And I see this is so effective. And in the beginning, you not see quite the impact. But we saw here the habit makes perfection. And I'm sure each and every one of you, if you close the door of your heart, it's just the parable of when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and talk to God. It doesn't have to be in a specific place. Anywhere, everywhere. I saw here, I heard here in one of the lectures that I guess was Susanna was mentioning when she started her day, and she read a book, she read the pages of a book. Everything is fresh, and start to tone how she wants to behave. I know this is easy to say and then difficult to put in practice. But as I mentioned, practice makes perfection. God is always listening to us in all the time, everywhere. We are just like little fish in this infinite aquarium. This fluidic cosmic principles, you call dark matter or whatever the name you want to use. We are all interconnected. We are immersed in a sea of waves. And that's why when the anxieties and the depressions and all the struggles that knocking on our door because we have the baggage of the past, simply open your heart and initiate with something simple. God, I need help. Sounds simple, but simple things in life make a huge difference. Let's start with simple conversation with God, and the good spirits are going to be there, and you will see a whole lot difference. I see people wanted to talk maybe, and I'm going to share my microphone with Rebecca. You want to say something else?
I also wanted to add the point that you are always going to be heard by God, even if he doesn't do exactly what you prayed for specifically, but you will be heard. He knows best, and we do have to trust him when it comes to that. Like, he is listening. He is aware. You're never alone. Like, you are always there with him, and prayer is just that connection. But it just has to come from the bottom of your heart, like you say. And additionally, besides just praying for yourself, there's the topic of praying for others. And I think that is extremely important in that fluid thoughts. So like, you just spread that positive energy towards others. And it's just a really wonderful tool for you to practice every day.
Can I add something?
Go ahead.
Well, many of you already know me, and there's one figure that I love so much. and I guess I'm not alone in this room, St. Francis of Assisi, when he asked, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. But there's hatred in this world, full of hatred. Help me to sow love. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. Where there's all kind of discord. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with the other statements that are being posted or presented to us. Make the difference that you want and you're wishing to see. I guess was Yuri said and mentioned Gandhi about that. Be the difference. Be the difference. Be the little point of light wherever you are, asking for help, and you will see this prayer will be answered. Maybe not in the time that we are wishing to be answered, but it's time for God, and everything has the right time to be maturing during the course of our lives, and no seeds, no prayer will be unheard. All the prayers are heard, but they will be answered at the right time. So we can maybe at this time have the lesson of patience, humility, tolerance. Maybe I'm not going to jump to the other point is about charity, because they're all very interconnected. It's just like a mosaic of teachings offered us to all of us over 2,000 years ago, inviting us first to be humble in spirit. First, let's empty ourselves from the ego that still resides inside of each and every one of us, and leave space for the mercy and the love of God to fill the emptiness that we still feel deep inside. Repeating what I said in the beginning, make us all an instrument of your peace. Thank you.
I remember when I was doing some research for a topic of my own, and they were always saying, like, treat your day as we do at the Spiritist centers. You always start and end your day with a prayer, just like at every time you meet at a Spiritist center, you begin and close with a prayer. Towards the end of the day, I know I take that time for a moment of self-reflection. So with that, I'd like to invite Gabriel and Leah to talk about self-reflection.
Ladies first or wiser first?
Ladies first.
As you know, we is the youth group, and as we learned, as we go through multiple lives, age is not something physical. So we have here the blessing of having this youth with us, which is
all four of us.
Which is so good to see. When we see the 19th U.S. Spiritist Symposium, it has 2 decades of hard work from both realms for us to be here today, and we start seeing the fruits of the gospel with these youth that were already born or raised on this culture, and now shedding the light of Spiritism with all of us. So it's a true honor and a blessing to be here. But going back to the topic of self-reflection, Yuri, on his beautiful presentation, he mentioned about the Spirit's book question 919, right? Which talks about get to know yourself. Something that the ancient Greek start bringing this concept to us. It's not new to us that we need to get to know ourselves in order to see what type of imperfections we have to get rid of. But at the same time, as we get to know ourselves, we also need to learn how to love ourselves, how to identify things that we already accomplished, that we already conquered, and know that this God that is all love and mercy it's out there for all of us. When you think about that, we are so unique, and we are so much loved. We should ourselves love ourselves. We should then express our love around us. And like they beautifully talk about prayer, we need to establish this communication with our Creator, because again, like it was mentioned here before, we have all the answers inside of us, but we need to access these answers and be able to talk about it. But let Gabriel talk a little bit, right?
So, in my opinion, excuse a personal opinion, but I think self-reflection is one of the hardest things to practice, because you look within yourself, right? You look at yourself, therefore self-reflection. But you do like this introspection. And then why is it the hardest thing? Because you look at your own flaws. You start noticing that, wow, maybe I'm prideful. Maybe I have the evil twins that Yuri mentioned earlier, right? So that thing, just realizing that sometimes you are the one that may be in the wrong, that's honestly a hard pill to swallow. And also self-reflection, talking about reincarnation, right? We bring so many things from past incarnations that are bad and that are good, right? So take a time at the end of like a day, week, month, whenever, take a time, right? And just think, what did I do that was bad? What did I do that affected someone negatively? What did I do that could be better, right? So then you think and you're like, wow, maybe I should change this. Maybe I should be nicer to the guy that talked bad about me. Maybe at work, I need to have more patience. Or, so we are not always bad, right? We have our good things, right? Let's look at the positive sides. So you look at all the good things I did. Wow, sure, I did bad things. However, I did good things too. So how can I keep doing these good things? Or how can I improve or do these good things even more, And back to reincarnation, like I said before, right? And you already mentioned that through our reincarnations, that's when we get better, right? We come with like a list of things to be better on. And on John chapter 3, verse 3, Jesus says, to enter the kingdom of heaven, one must be born again. Reincarnation right there. Bam. Summarizes everything. So we need to reincarnate, right? It's not going to be better from one incarnation to the other. Wow, I'm going to become like Christ at the age of 50. No, I'm not. Like, there's absolutely no way. It takes time. It takes multiple reincarnations. Everything takes time. Everything has its own time. But it's not always a definite, like, oh, in 5 reincarnations, I'm going to be a much better spirit. It depends on the person. Everyone has their own rate of evolution, right? So for one person, it can take 2 reincarnations to learn piano, while for one, it may take 1 or 3 or whatever it is. That's just an example, right? Because, I'm a pianist, so I kind of have to say that. But anyways, back to self-reflection. It's like looking at yourself and think, what am I doing that is wrong? What am I doing that's right? How can I possibly change that? How can I make myself a better person, right? We usually talk about start within our homes. What does that really mean? Yeah, start with family, dad, mom, watching online, brother. We have to start within our families, our homes. However, what is our spirit's home when we are incarnated? Our physical body, right? So within our physical body, there's our spirit. So work on yourself first. Work on your thoughts. Work on your actions. Truly changing yourself, so that way you can start building up and start changing things around you, possibly, right? We can't just change everything around us, but we can try to be that light, lighthouse. Thank you, Yuri. We can try to be that lighthouse, right? Be the inspiration for the people around us. Thank you.
I'd say hold on to those microphones because you're up next again.
When I grow up, I want to see like Gabe. Remember, I mentioned about being wiser. It's not something biological. Thank you so much. Very proud of you.
Just a little point on self-reflection. Since our panel is talking about all the practical tools that we can use, I think that doing this daily, like at night, would be very helpful to us. Starting our day off with that prayer, setting our intentions right, and then at the end of the day, coming back, reflecting on your thoughts, your actions, and really seeing where you have to improve, and then acting on that, which is what Spiritism is all about. Not just your thoughts, but your actions, truly, like they were discussing.
As a person said in antiquity, know thyself.
Yes, on the same question, there is St. Augustine who really give us the step by step how we can get to know ourselves.
Yes.
Just before going to sleep, after a very busy day, just evaluate what you have done, and to yourself, to others, to God, and then how can you improve yourself.
Yep.
And then you have the next day to start all over. It's like a new reincarnation, opportunity to do better.
Can I add on to that?
Go for it.
Thank you. So, speaking of ourselves, right? We are our own intelligent beings. We have our free will, right? Whether you choose to exercise that free will correct or not, that's going to be on you. So it's like when we were children, right? Teenagers. Not a teenager anymore. I'm an adult. But back when we were still younger.
I am a teenager.
She's still a teenager. Back when we were still younger, and I asked, "Oh, mom or dad, can I do this?" Absolutely not. What? Why? Because I said so. Okay, how are you going to learn from that? Sorry, not picking on you, but how are we going to learn from that, right? How can we possibly learn from that? Well, God gave us the free will because we can do that thing, right? We can go out, we can do whatever, but we are going to learn from what we do, right? We're going to learn whether it's bad. Oh, if I do this, the consequences are going to be bad. If I do this, the consequences are going to be good, right? We have our own intelligence and our free will. Just like question 23 of the Spirit's book, right? What is the Spirit? It's the intelligent universal principle. Princípio inteligente do universo, right? The translation's weird, but you get the idea, right? So we have our own actions and we have our own thoughts.
It's funny for me listening to you because I've seen you play at so many of these other symposiums and meetings where you've been out there on the piano playing, and it's like I keep thinking about the reflections that you have. Like when you're having a bad day, I'm sure it translates into the piano, and then or other days when you use the piano to improve your mood. So it works both ways. Not only are you reflecting yourself in your music, but the music reflects back on you. Leading into our next topic, because I think for you, sometimes music is a form of meditation, a way to promote mindfulness. So with this, I bring it back to you two again, talking about mindfulness and meditation.
Okay, always leads first. Mindfulness. One of the blessings of being invited to participate more actively on this event is that give us the opportunity to read, to study, and get to know the subject. So when we talk about practical tools, what do we have to do to really master these tools, right? We need to get to know the tools, we need to put into practice. And mindfulness, for someone like me, is very hard because you need to remain in the moment. You need to focus and concentrate and control your mind not to be wandering. We all have moments that we go back in the past, and because we want to live these memories again, we want to revisit the past, we want to see, okay, what I did wrong, how can I improve and do better? But many of us stays stuck in the past, right? In a melancholic state, which can evolve to depression, or we can really feel guilty about things we have done or we have not done. But guess what? We always have opportunities to redo and do better. But we need to forgive ourselves, let our past there, and come back to the present. Another difficulty to remain the present is many of us want to live the future right away. And why that? Why we have this need to be in the future? Because we fear the future. We want to control the future. So it's an invitation. Mindfulness is an invitation to be in the moment, to feel yourself, to feel the surrounding, and it's okay that you be going back and forth, past, present, and future, but always come back, and use these tools out there to remain the present. I'm pretty sure we are going to diminish our melancholic states, depressive states, or anxious disorders that it can evolve to phobic states. So doing exercises of being in the moment, like right now, live this moment. Do not worry about what you have to do after it, what your family is doing, what you did yesterday, or checking your messages or your social media. Be in the moment. So this is all about mindfulness. Complement?
Yeah, so speaking about meditation, right? What truly is meditation, right? Because a lot of the times when we say meditation, a lot of us, right, we think about sitting down, closing our eyes, emptying our thoughts, deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Yes, that's meditation. But there's also possible ways to meditate, right? To connect with yourself. Ooh, connect with yourself. So, who likes nature? Everyone raise your hands. There's not one person that does not like nature. I can assure you that. I can assure you. So, going out, doing something you like, just walking on the beach for us Floridians. And for other people, maybe, I don't know, walking on the grass, right? That's nature, right? It builds up your energy, right? You have more energy once you connect yourself with the earth, with something that God created, right? So it reconnects you, not just with everything else around you, but with God too, right? Because He's the creation of everything, right? What else was I gonna say? I completely forgot. Train of thoughts. Yes, that's right. Talking about music. So music, fantastic way to meditate, right? It's amazing. Like Brian said, not just as a personal example, right? When I sit on my piano, it feels like I'm in heaven, literally. Sometimes it's stressful, but when we listen to music, right? Classical music does have the scientific effect on the brain. Harvard Health posted a study, right, saying that there was a group of college people who listened to Mozart every day and the ones who didn't listen to Mozart every day. So the ones who did listen to Mozart, when they all took an IQ test, the people who listened to Mozart, their scores tend to be higher than the people who don't. It's a great one, right? For the youth over here who you guys are still in school, start listening to Mozart. I can assure you, you're going to do better. So not just that, right? Classical music, it tends to elevate your thoughts, right? It tends to calm you down. Other than, rock. Rock is great for the gym. But when you are at home, when you want to relax, when you have a busy day, when you've had a tough day, you're mad, angry, sad, whatever it is, right? Listen to classical music. There are so many pieces to listen to from great composers, Beethoven, Chopin, Bach, Mozart. I can't get too much into classical music because time doesn't permit. I would sit here though and talk for, I think, my whole lifetime about music to you guys, but I'm not going to do that. But the point is, right, meditation is such a beneficial thing for us to do during our daily lives, right? It can calm us down. Imagine we're having a stressful day. Bam, meditate. You're going to get better. I promise you. Meditation is also a form of prayer, right? Because you're in silent, you are taking your time to really calm yourself down, right? Because usually when we tend to be very with heightened emotions, right? When we're just before leaving for a flight or whatever it is, work, just an example, right? This meditation can calm you down, right? It can do beneficial things to us. So, yeah, taking the time to meditate will completely change your life. Thank you.
And it's not hard. We need to get to know these tools and practice, and they all complement each other. If we learn to establish a connection with our Creator, with our Master Jesus, with our mentors, with the spiritual world through prayer when we ask for advice, when we ask for help. But we can also praise God, right? Which is another way to communicate with God. And the same way we talk with God, we need to allow God talk to us in the silence of our hearts, like Mother Teresa used to say. And allow yourself to pause in your busy days, in your busy lives, to get connected with the superior world, because we belong to this spiritual world. If we just live a material life, we are not going to feel fulfilled. We are going to feel the stress. We are going to feel the anxieties, the fears. So we need to center, have a more balanced life, and use these wonderful tools that we can find on the Spiritist literature that can help us so much. We had Susanna is starting the tone mentioning Leon Denis. Leon Denis, we can find on his books a lot about meditation, and he talks about the beauty of being in nature, right? Contemplating our Creator. And in the same way that we see nature is perfect and beautiful, we are also perfect and beautiful to be. We are still undergoing a process of evolution, but we are going to get there. It is up to us to use these tools to advance, little by little, like it was mentioned, step by step, until we become really, truly perfect and beautiful. But we are going to get there. And I also want to say there is a lady smiling here, and it makes such a difference for us. First of all, when we saw that we are going to talk just after lunch, I was not expecting to see a lot of people, to be honest. I said, so it's going to be easy. I'm not going to talk in front of a lot of people, but everybody came back, and your active participation is very important. Your thoughts, your smiles, because we are not different than you. We are probably just in need to work a little bit more to acquire, more knowledge and to put into practice. So.
And for those of us that, well, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. So I play with all different things, painting, sculpting, writing, along with singing and things like that. But it's like you can find meditation in nearly any activity you do. We met the embroidery that was mentioned earlier is ways to connect. I know my mom today's her birthday, she's sitting here and she does sewing to calm her mind and make herself, and it keeps her youthful and young as a consequence. But now back to Marcelo and Rebecca. Our last practical tool for this panel talks about charity and service to others, which we know, Rebecca, choosing nursing as a field, this is going to be very strong for you, being a service to others, as well as being charitable with your time and energy, helping those in need. You want to start us off?
So for charity, I think we do think a lot about material charity, how we give to others, whether that's helping the homeless, like through your actions, or physically, like through money. But there is also charity of the heart. So just giving some time throughout your day to listen to your friends, to listen to those people who need to be heard. It is very essential, and it benefits the both of you. Like just that person knowing that they feel heard and you doing that for them, there are reciprocal benefits to that. And also a topic that is super forgotten about in charity is charity to yourself, as we're talking a lot about meditation, reflection. Beating yourself up over and over about a specific problem is not going to help. Like, yes, reflecting over it is good, but there comes to a point where it is too much. I see that especially like as a college student, like in a fast-paced environment, like all of the students are comparing each other. Like, it's just a difficult environment to be in overall. So you knowing that you are here on this earth to grow for yourself, no matter how you get there, you will eventually get there. But just take practice into every day, take it slow, take each interaction with someone as an opportunity to grow, and without forgetting that growing only comes through the uncomfortable. So putting yourselves in those situations, whether that's public speaking like us, even volunteering, that is great. But it can be small, like listening to your friends, you know? So.
She's fantastic. I charity, this word is, as Rebecca mentioned, right in the early ages of the acquiring a little bit of knowledge of the Spiritist teachings, was basic, related to material help, giving food to a homeless, a shelter, a blanket to someone that's feeling cold. But then came the question 886 for the Spirit's book. How Jesus, it's not how Marcelo, Leah, Rebecca, Gabriel. Weird, yeah. Sometimes this is age, all young people here, and sometimes there's a little glitch inside of our mind. How we understand charity, it's way different, way, way different from how Jesus understood how charity is interpreted. And Rebecca mentioned something that I like it very much. And the definition given by the spirits is benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfection of others, and forgiveness for offenses. Interesting, this three words, benevolence, comes from the Latin root bene volere. Bene comes from good. Volere means go in direction to. Bring your good and give it to someone. Benevolence towards everyone. It's not the one that we like, not the one that we enjoy very much. It's someone that it challenges us because we are constantly, especially in the world that we live in, being challenged every day, all the time. And then also has the word indulgence. In means inside. Indulgence means sweet, dulcere, the inner sweet that we have to develop within towards the imperfections of others, because we all have a lot of imperfections. And we also deserve and really want to receive indulgence. And the most challenge is the forgiveness for offenses. Forgive. Give something else. Give yourself. Even for you. And she mentioned forgive yourself, because sometimes we're stuck in guilt that crystallizes inside of our heart because we have a baggage with wrongdoings. And that's why reincarnation is a blessing that invites us to dive again into flesh. And Gabriel mentioned that we need to be reborn again in a new experience of life, facing the same obstacles, of course, in small dosages, so we can learn how to be a little more good, benevolent, a little more sweet, indulgent, and practicing a little more forgiveness. This opens up in such a way that it brings us the notion of charity and invite us to be changed in such a way. It might be something very simple and maybe not very well understood, basically because other religions, other traditions simply gave this kind of formula to us, but not explaining that we came from a past more attached to the sword than to the love of God. but this pathway of redemption, finding ourselves a little more within the nature, the true nature that we are all belonging one day and experiencing with way much profundity, is the destination that we all have. We live in a world of trials and expiation, in the border of regeneration. I was listening to a message dictated by the Spirit, Bezerra de Menezes, channel by Divaldo Franco in 2010. This was in Brasilia. And he mentioned that we are invited to be challenged. Not simply, we have being here, speaking and memorizing a few words, a few questions. It's easy. It's very easy. I know it's difficult. I'm not diminishing the fact that we are here. But putting in practice everything that we say, that we preach, and putting into actions outside, it's the great challenge. And it's because we said too much in temples and churches, so distant of our actions outside in our real life, that we create so much disagreement and disbelief that what exactly you're talking about Christ, about this forgiveness. Be the change that you want to be. Be someone more charitable, practicing benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfections of others and ourselves. Forgive yourself first and forgive others. This is the duty that we have to embrace each and every day. And of course, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be challenge, a lot of challenge. But Jesus mentioned, and was mentioned here, too many wonderful lectures we heard here. You can do what I do and much more. Thank you. She wants to say something.
So when it comes to charity also, let's think all about fraternity. That is how we grow as spirits. That is something that you should always keep in mind when moving forward with your life. Yes, of course, it's about inner reflection, as we were talking about meditation, stabilizing and centering yourself with you and with God first, so you can apply all of that to everyone else that you see and hear and talk about. It's like gossiping in college, extreme like topic, but what good does that do for anyone? Think a practical tool might be like thinking, is this going to benefit me or to harm me? Is there any benefit at all? And just keeping that in mind along with what Jesus would do. And if the majority of people did what you did in that moment, would society as a whole become better or worse? And that's what I like to think about when I'm going through challenges.
If I can add something from an old priest from the past, God loves you.
Thank you, panel. Before we leave and before we depart, I just want to say one quick comment, but with charity. One of the things that always brought to my mind is even though we ourselves have to give charity and be a service to others, let us not forget that we also have others that will go with us on the journey. Just as Jesus had his disciples, we also can rely on our friends or people from within the center to help us with these, whatever our task may be. We can always find help, whether it be from God, whether it be from the center or your family, your friends. When you do give charity and serve of others, you usually find that there will be others that will come back and help and serve you as well. With that, thank you, panel, for this wonderful thing.
Well, thank you again, everyone. Following our discussion on tools to elevate consciousness, we now turn to another powerful resource, mediumship. By connecting us with the spiritual world, mediumship broadens our awareness, deepens our empathy, and enhances our understanding of the life beyond the physical. Please join me in welcoming Eduardo Haddad, who will be moderating our next panel, The Role of Mediumship in Expanding Consciousness. Eduardo Haddad has dedicated 25 years to promoting Spiritism in the U.S., founding centers in California and Texas. Excuse me, and serving as treasurer of the Florida Spiritist Federation. He currently serves on the board of the U.S. Spiritist Federation and is an active worker at the Kardec Spiritist Group of Austin, Texas. Welcome, Eduardo.
Thank you so much. Talk about the hard act to follow. The previous one was just wonderful panel. Thank you. Thank you all. We talked about AI, so I want to get one thing out of the way. I'm not a AI. I am a real person. And can you even imagine the prompt to create this? Don't think about it. It's going to mess up your head. Impossible. Now it's such a pleasure to be here. I want to take a moment just to express how joyful this moment and this day is for me. I speak for me. First, because if you have seen a lot of tags with the name Haddad, you're not seeing double. It's just that I have my whole family there, my 3 boys and girl, and my wife and my sister. So a lot of us are here today. I'm very proud of them because I know it's a sacrifice that everyone is making in being here and that they are making, and it makes me so proud. Also, seeing so many friends, old and new. And I know the lectures are fantastic, and this next panel is probably going to be the best one of the day, I have to say. No, just kidding. But it's seeing all of you, and it's seeing the hugs. I love the hugs, and it reminds me of Jesus, because Jesus said that my disciples are going to be known for loving one another. And I think this is what we are here. We are aspiring disciples of the Christ, and just seeing everyone together is just fantastic. But thank you. But we are here to talk about a very important topic, which is the role of mediumship in expanding consciousness. It's a topic that is not only fascinating, but it is at the center of Spiritism. If there wasn't mediumship, we would not be speaking about Spiritism. That's how it was born. And as we know, Spiritism encompasses philosophical, moral, and scientific aspects, as I think Luis said it so well. You know, you have different entry points into Spiritism, but at the heart of it is the understanding of mediumship. And when Kardec first encountered the phenomenon of spiritual communication, he approached it with the rigor and methodology of a scientist and educator that he was. And what he found just mesmerized him. It was at the center of everything, and with the potential of revolutionizing how we would understand life and life after death. When we think about mediumship, we always think about communicating with those who have passed on. And while this is important for an important part of Spiritism and mediumship, today what we want to do is go much deeper than that, and really investigate and understand how mediumship can help us get to a higher version of ourselves. So I could not have asked for a better group of panelists to be doing that with me here today. And I'm going to invite all of them here to the panel, good friends, old friends. And the first one is João. What is João? João Korngold. So, thank you. So João is one of the founders and directors of the Spiritist Group of New York. and the Spiritist Alliance of Books. He began studying Spiritism more than 30 years ago and has been one of the directors of the Mediumship meeting at SGNI for the past 20 years. He's also responsible for study groups that focus on the basic books of Spiritism and on the André Luiz collection. He gives talks on Spiritism in Portuguese and English. João is an engineer and works as a banker. Thank you for being here. Our next panelist, is it Andreia? Let me see. Who is? Can you click? No, I knew you guys switched on me, but I'm thinking here, so I'll hold for Andreia. It's Peter. So thank you, Peter. Peter is a worker at the Spirit Group Love and Light in Newark, New Jersey. He's also the current outreach director of the United States Spiritist Federation and an active participant in the Tri-State Spiritist Federation. Peter has published several children's books with his wife, Betty Rosen, is here as well, through their company Sem Fronteiras Press and with other publishers in Brazil, Colombia, and the US. Having a long background in theater, he holds an MFA in dramatic writing from New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. Thanks for being here, Peter. And now, the best for last. No, I'm kidding. We all were best. Andreia Marshall-Netto is the director of the Conscious Living Spiritist Group, director of events at the board of the Spirits Federation of Florida, managing director of Leal Publisher, an affiliated branch of Leal Livraria in Brazil, in the translation and dissemination of Divaldo Franco's Spiritist books, and FAB Publisher, an affiliated branch of the Brazilian Spirits Federation, publisher in the dissemination of Spiritists titles. Thank you all. Just a reminder, if you have questions, there will be a Q&A, not during this session, but after the coffee break, right after this session. So write down your questions and we'll get to them during the Q&A. So let's start by examining how mediumship bridges the physical and spiritual realms. I'll pass the mic to you, João, to get us started, please.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's very nice to be here. It's an honor to be amongst these friends here in this panel. And it's a hard act to follow, the previous one. I think this is a younger version of the previous panel. So I think it's important for us to understand mediumship according to Spiritism, right? Because Spiritism didn't invent mediumship. Spiritism just gives us a tool on how to understand and develop our work with mediumship. Mediumship is the communication between the spiritual world and the physical world. And in order to do that, we need mediums. Mediums can be of three different aspects. You can be a psychic medium, which is more of a psychic in a way, because you have clairaudience, clairvoyance, you have intuition, but you are not really bringing messages from the spirits. You are bringing your own experiences, interacting with the spiritual world. And then you have mediums of physical effects and mediums of intelligent effects. Medium of physical effects is the ones that all Spiritism started with, the mediums of physical effect. The noises, the raps, the table turnings. These are produced by mediums that are capable to allow their energy, ectoplasm, to be used by the spirits to produce the physical phenomena. But more important and relevant to us spiritists is mediumship of intelligent phenomena, which is the psychography, the psychophony that mediums use to bring us messages from the spiritual world. Now, different from what you see in different places, in Spiritism, mediumship is used as a tool to educate us incarnate spirits, for us to assist the discarnate spirits, and also, like it is seen out there many times, for them to bring the messages that will enlighten us. And we have many Spiritist books that are brought by these spirits through different mediums. But one thing that is very important in Spiritism, mediumship is not a spectacle. Mediumship, it has to be used to help us grow morally and intellectually, us here incarnates and discarnate ones. So we generally don't use this type of events to have mediumistic productions, let's say. Why? Because demonstration of mediumship just fuels our curiosity, but doesn't really help us grow. So that's very important. When we talk about mediumship, Kardec, at the beginning, he went to some seances that were public, that were fun, but from that, he started something much more serious, which is asking the spirits serious questions, receiving answers, why we are here, where we are going, and what is the purpose of all this. In Spiritist centers, most of the mediumship works are done to help and assist the spirits in the other side. Suffering spirits, struggling spirits, suicide spirits that don't know that they went back to the spiritual world, spirits that are angry, obsessors, that are persecuting others. So we help them, and in a way, they help us, because we learn more about the spiritual world. We learn more about the consequences of us not doing our jobs when we are here incarnating, not using our time here in this incarnation to evolve, to progress, not to run the risk to end up in the spiritual world like many of these suffering spirits that we speak, we talk every week. I am a dialoguer, so I discuss these issues with the spirits, and it's very interesting, and you learn a lot. So that is mediumship according to Spiritism. The Medium's book is the book for those that are interested in educating themselves about mediumship. Because for you to be a good medium or to work with mediumship, you need to learn, to educate yourself, and to continuously study so you can continue improving and protect yourself against the influence of less elevated spirits that are surrounding us all the time and trying to cause harm to us. So let us focus on learning, studying, and then mediumship will be a wonderful and very useful tool for our growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, João. It's a really great way to start our panel. It does make me want to be a medium, but unfortunately, I'm a small. Let me, just before we move on to the next main topic with Andreia, I do want to have some quick questions here with our other panelists. Peter, does everyone have mediumship?
Yes. Yes, everyone has some capacity for mediumship, but not everybody is what we call an ostensive medium, meaning you actually can do psychophony, psychography, and so forth that João talked about. But in terms of intuitions, inspirations we may get, are they only coming through us, or are we getting help from the other side? It can be both.
Thank you. So João mentioned that he's a dialoguer. So Andreia, are you a medium, or do you work in mediumship in any capacity?
I am a medium. but I also do the dialogue at our mediumistic meeting. Yes.
Very good.
And the reason I say this is because when you are at the moment where you are conducting the dialogue, you're also being inspired. Oftentimes, if you're not a seeing medium, it's quite hard to see the condition or the situation of the spirit that is manifesting itself through the medium. The medium may be crying, but you don't know why until the dialogue starts and you start getting a broader view of the situation. And unless you've been in that situation, a show of hands, how many people work in a mediumistic or a spirit rescue meeting? Okay. So quite a few years. So if you're in the dialogue mode, how many people are dialoguers in the meeting? Okay. So if you are in that position, sometimes it's quite hard to know what's happening, right? And you're kind of like in a guessing mode until intuition kicks in and you're open to it. And all of a sudden you're talking as if you're really seeing what is happening. So when you are in the dialogue mode, although you're not a medium, like Peter just said here, you are utilizing the help, the guidance of the benevolent spirits so that you know what to say and what not to say. Meaning, when you address the spirit in Portuguese and you say lady, and all of a sudden the spirit says, I'm not a lady, so it's quite hard when you can't see.
Peter, you want to say something? Yes, thank you, Andrea.
I'm too much of a Neanderthal to be a medium, but I am you use the word dialoguer, that works. A counselor is another way to put it. And absolutely what Andrea just said, that there is a type of intuition or mediumship, if you will, that kicks in. Often, as a counselor, really, it takes a moment to figure out what's going on when a medium starts to get passivity.
Okay, thank you. So that's a perfect segue to our next section here, which Andrea is going to cover for us, which is mediumship as a source of knowledge and moral growth. Please take it away.
I have 8 minutes, right?
Yeah, about that.
So I'm going to take a few seconds from my speech and just ask, I know that there are some Michigans out there, but could we have some of the local folks to stand up in the room? Okay. And I, give them a hand of applause. The growing Spiritist movement in Michigan, thank you for hosting us. It's really great to be here. As João started off really well, Allan Kardec on chapter 29 of the Medium's book, the Medium's book is really also important to read and study again and again and again. On item 324, he's going to remind us that there are 3 types of mediumistic meetings. Back then, he gave us an idea. He talked about the frivolous meetings, that which were used mainly for those who were interested in the phenomena. There was also what he would call the experimental meetings, which were the ones that gave up to the aspect of the phenomena. And it's actually really important because it did give us an idea of this bridge between the 2 worlds, the physical and the spiritual. And then the other, in which we would call instructive meetings, which basically is what it is, instructive. And he would categorize it. I have cheat notes. We do that in college, right? Cheat notes. He would talk about the purpose of the instructive meetings, as it suggests, for guidance and provide experience of intellectual and moral growth for those who attend them. And it's quite interesting when he defines these meetings as instructive and serious, because you cannot separate the word serious from a meeting that is guided by benevolent spirits, that are planned by the benevolent spirits, meaning when we get there, when the mediums appear, we have the director of the meeting, in which case in our center is Susanna. In case you guys want to know, Susanna Simões is the director of a meeting. And then you have counselors. Thank you, Peter. I like that word much better. Yeah, the dialogue, yeah. Counselors, and then you have the mediums, right? And then they have the support, those that are sitting there giving support to the meeting. He is going to talk about the fact, reinforcing seriousness as a fundamental condition for this meeting, explaining that in the full sense of word, It defines a meeting that is concerned with useful matters, excluding anything else. So no one is there to watch the phenomena. We're not there to evoke the spirit of Marilyn Monroe, although there is a book that talks about her in the spirit plane, by Brother X. He talks about her in the spirit plane. And basically, he brings us the idea that in order to have something that is sublime, we cannot part from the aspect of seriousness, which is not to say that we're going to be hard. It is not to say that there are times, the spirits that may manifest themselves will have a message that is fraternal. No, it's talking about the usefulness of the meeting. More often than not, when we attend a mediumistic meeting, something very interesting happens. And when we talk about the planning from the benevolent spirits, we're going to know about the kind of the genre, the type of situations, the type of spirits that are going to manifest themselves, the capacity of the group to attend them. Suicide spirits, like João mentioned, when a medium manifests a suicide spirit, it's quite hard on the medium. I mean, the fluidic energies, the exchanges between the energies between the discarnate spirit and the incarnate, the one that is offering the vessel to do so, it's very hard. So the medium needs to be equipped with that. Not only that, the support needs to be equipped with the fact that they're not going to flip out. They're not going to feel like the meeting's out of control. They're going to pray. They're going to ask for the support of the benevolent spirits, and they're going to emanate wholesome energy to embrace not only the spirit that is suffering, but also the medium that is allowing the manifestation to go through, and also the counselor, so that the counselor know what to say. So at that specific day, there will be a planning. And I'm going to pretend that João is a hardened spirit. Is that okay? Okay. And I am the counselor, right? And in the moment that I'm going to dialogue with João, I'm going to find out why he is such a hardened spirit. And I'm going to find out that he is enraged with a situation that happened in the previous existence that is keeping him basically enslaved to someone else, and an obsession, if you will. And I'm going to talk to João about what? Who can guess? Forgiveness. I'm going to talk to, not João, but the spirit about forgiveness. And all of a sudden, I'm going to start thinking, because this happens as you're a counselor, you're going to start thinking about current situation in your own life that requires forgiveness. And two things are going to happen. You're going to tune out, because that's not your moment. It's the spirit's moment. And then afterwards, you're going to reflect, because you told the spirit about the need to forgive. You told the spirit about being seen. You're going to tell the spirit that his suffering is very real, and you mean it, because it's true. You're not lying. But then when the communication is over and the spirit felt seen, heard, and understood, the spirit is going to decide whether he's going to forgive or not, or if he's going to think about it, which is a huge part, right? Just thinking about it, or if he's actually going to end up forgiving. And sometimes it doesn't happen at all. There will be many meetings in which the spirit is going to come back to listen to the counsel, until eventually it is able to break free of its shackles. But when that dialogue is over, I'm going to sit back and think, my God, why is it that I am unable to forgive Peter for what he's done? Why is it so hard to see Peter's suffering and Peter's need, but yet I'm able to dialogue with the spirit as if I am filled with all of those virtues that I'm not yet filled with? And so it's instructive in that way, because the benevolent spirits are going to be very knowledgeable on whom they're going to be pairing with. The manifesting spirit, the medium that has the ability to give passage to allow the manifestation of a serious spirit, a hardened spirit, an obsessor of a very tough kind, a suffering spirit, a happy one, or even one that is able to provide a message, that is able to be the filter for a benevolent spirit, such as Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, for example. So they know us. They know of what we are able to offer. The group grows, the group evolves, and so do the mediums. But in order to do that, we also need to do the work, the instructions that are being given at that determined meeting, whether we are the one counseling or listening in, because oftentimes we'll be listening, right? Peter, if we are the counselors, at times it's not our moment. We're going to sit back. We're going to emanate powerful and loving vibration, but we're going to listen to the dialogue. And it needs to find space in our hearts, because if it's not, then the meeting for us is not as serious as it should be. It is a laboratory that is allowing us to be in touch with the feelings that we already have, the virtues that we already have, and that which we still need to work on. And so in the 2 books that we recently released, Mediumistic Practice and Mediumistic Meetings, the group that is responsible for this, the Manuel Filomeno de Miranda project, the group, they came together to evaluate several meetings and the dialogues that took place, and offering us also instructive information so that we know how much we can grow from these meetings and how much we can take from it. I'm not sure if I'm up on my time yet, but I remember, and I'm finalizing, I remember a member of a meeting that I used to belong to, and he would say, mediumistic meetings are so boring. And I'm like, which meeting is he attending? Because the one that I go to him, it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing to see how love can break barriers. It's quite amazing to see how much when 5, 6, 7, 8 people are together and they're emanating and they're trying to vibrate the most for that suffering spirit, and the spirit finds solace, how transformative that is, and how much we want to do more charity, like our friends in the prior panel talked to us. Charity feels good because it goes right to that center where, you know, when you eat chocolate, it feels the same way. That's doing good. It feels the same way. We want to do more. If chocolate is your thing, if it's not, you know, another snack. To me, it's chocolate. So that's what it is. So just to finalize, we're going to remember the book, The Messengers, in which Andrea Lewis is going to bring us information that spirit plane, masses reincarnate, being ready, being prepared for the mediumistic mandate, not only as mediums, but also counselors and the support. But he's also going to remind us that masses of reincarnated beings fail miserably, because it's not only about the work, it's also about putting in the effort to become better as we do the work to try to speak to someone else. So it's not only talk the talk, it's walking the talk. So
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrea. Such great description of how important this work is, how rich, how multifaceted it is. And before we move on to Peter with our next topic, I do want to ask. I was thinking as you were talking about the work, and I want to ask João, can the spirits lie to us, or can we see right through them?
Can your wife and sons lie to you? Do you always know that they are lying? Spirits are just us on the other side. So yes, they can and they will lie to us. But many times lie to themselves. That's what's the big issue there. You have to convince them that they are lying to themselves. And that's the big challenge. But
go ahead. No, I said that's the hard work of the dialoguer, right?
Yes, the work of the counselor or the dialoguer. I like the word dialoger, but counselor is a good one also. I just want to say something else that when Andrea was talking, I was thinking here, because we are in Michigan and maybe you guys say, well, I'm a medium, but there's no Spiritist group that have mediumship meetings here, or there is no Spiritists around me anyhow. So how can I use my mediumship? How can I develop my mediumship? we use our mediumship every time we are helping someone, providing assistance. You volunteer at a hospital, you volunteer at a shelter, you volunteer at giving food, you volunteer giving passes, you volunteer at listening to that person that in your family that is in trouble and needs to vent, and you are there to listen, not to say anything. You are using your mediumship and you are not going to suffer from it. Okay?
Go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to add something about spirits lying, because sometimes in a group, the benevolent spirits will allow these type of spirits that do lie in pretending to be someone that they're not, and sometimes do that with messages that are very noble and they sound very good until they get, the whole trust of the group, and sometimes to infiltrate and break up the work. So they do lie, and this is why the gospel according to Spiritism will talk to us about the false prophets, not only of the false prophets of eroticity, meaning of the spirit plane, but also we have the ones that are incarnated that we need to be very mindful of. We also have the ones from the spirit plane that will come to us and provide us with false information. So yeah, we have to be very careful. So how do I know? Study the message. And the entire group, if they're very aware, someone will be able to realize there's something off there. And eventually the entire group hopefully will be able to catch on as well very quickly.
Well, that's a perfect segue to Peter's next section, which is going to talk about that absolutely, which is mediumship as a path to self-development and discernment. So please, Peter.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Eduardo and João and Andreia. So this brings us to a critical point. Can you hear me okay? Because it's all right. Sounds weird. This brings us to a critical point. If mediumship is a bridge and a source of knowledge, then how do we ensure that the traffic on that bridge is safe and the knowledge is reliable? This is where self-development and discernment become paramount. Let's ask ourselves a simple but perhaps kind of tricky question. Since all of us have some capacity for mediumship, what kind of spirits do we attract into our lives every day? Well, Kardec points out in the Medium's book, warns us really, and Andreia just mentioned it, that just as there are spirits here on earth, people of all intellectual and moral levels, spirits in the spirit world are the same. A medium can attract spirits who are wise and benevolent, but also spirits who are trivial, misleading, and even malicious. And what determines the quality of communication that's received from a spirit? Kardec leaves no doubt. It is the moral character of the medium. Yes, mediumship is mainly a physical ability, but morality does play a role. It is in the persistent and daily effort of a medium to become a better person. This is why the safe and responsible practice of mediumship is really a study of oneself. So, and that requires emotional honesty. So, for instance, emotional honesty requires discernment. For instance, when we think about messages, how should the medium understand and react to the messages that they're receiving? Well, we're taught to analyze messages critically. Check the logic. Is the message making sense? Is it reasonable? Does it contradict known truths? Look for the moral quality of the message. Does the message encourage love, charity, fraternity? Or is the message encouraging triviality, trying to inflate the ego in some way, encourage laziness, or even create division? Look for superior language. Messages from high-level spirits are done with wisdom and benevolence. Their words are free of trivialities, of verbosity, and certainly animosity. So again, when we think about what is going on in terms of mediumship communication and how we understand and react to those communications, it's really a read on ourselves. This is why analyzing and discernment can help expand consciousness, because it forces us or encourages us to increase intellectual development and also moral vigilance. But also, when discernment is lacking, actually mediumship is not a foolproof path for self-development. There are potential traps. Chapter 19 of the Medium's book points out that Chapter 19 of the Medium's book points out that just as Chapter 19 of the Medium's book does point out that it is possible for us to lose sight of what we're talking about.
Well,
Oh, funny. I'll stop there.
yeah. Well, can you talk a little bit about the types of influence that if you're medium and you're not watching, the types of influence and the degrees of that influence that you may become subject to.
Well, when we don't have discernment in the types of communications we receive, we may be opening ourselves up to obsession, for instance. So obsession is when there's a persistent negative influence by a spirit on an individual. Now, the word obsession is kind of a generic term, but in Spiritism, Allan Kardec in the Medium's book emphasized that there are three general categories of obsession. The first one is simple fascination. That's where a spirit keeps trying to interrupt communications in some way. And the medium should be able to recognize this. Therefore, simple obsession is more of an irritant, because the spirit's not really trying to hide what they're doing. Therefore, it's more of an inconvenience. But when obsession goes from fascination to, or from simple obsession to fascination, that's when we have to watch out. Fascination is when a spirit uses cunning, more subtle methods of deceit and paralyze a medium's judgment. So messages that are absurd and ridiculous may be interpreted as being sublime truths. A fascinated medium may actually feel as though certain doctrines or certain points of view are actually free of flaws, even though it's obvious to others. So if a medium were to lack humility, fascination can turn into a kind of vicious cycle, really a catch-22, to reference the American novelist Joseph Heller. If a medium clearly needs help, and yet the medium is not willing to take responsibility by increasing discernment, then how does the medium get help? So on and on it goes. This is why when we think about the way of combating the threat of fascination, it's important to emphasize self-discernment. And then the third and most severe form of obsession would be subjugation. That's where a spirit is able to actually begin to control the free will of an individual, and possibly even control their body. Tragically, sometimes those who are the victims of subjugation may do some strange and bizarre things, including violence. Subjugation is the worst form of obsession, but fascination is more common. Fascination can spread like an epidemic. History is full of widespread fascination.
Thank you, Peter. Absolutely, yeah, yeah. And if I may, because as you were mentioning, just this last bit here, right? As you said, unfortunately, we do have many stories of failed mediums who let themselves be fascinated, and then again, we don't have to name names, but it's one of the obstacles that we spiritists find, because when others hear about this, they remember the failed stories, and sometimes we have to be the ones reminding them of the success stories. So on that, does anyone want to mention, like, what mediums in the recent past would be considered, real success stories or examples of what we should be or try to be, right? Aspire to be as mediums.
I think Andreia was very close to a very famous medium that recently went back to the spiritual world, so she can talk about him, right? An example to all of us.
Well, when we last visited the Mission of the Way, not this year, but the year before, I just wanted to say that when Divaldo Franco, by the way, talked about coming back, he would say that he wanted to see every heart he was close to in the United States, and that meant everybody. So I just wanted to say that, everybody here. And one of the things that he would say is that, first of all, he received the medals, all of the
Accolades
that he received, he would actually transfer back to Allan Kardec and Jesus. One, because with Jesus, he wouldn't be anybody, and the work that he was doing, also because of the instruction that he received from Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism. But he would say that applauses were they were not very good tools for encouragement, because even at his old age, he could fail. And so he was always very aware of this fact, because we talk about not being pure and not being perfect yet. And one of the things that still holds us back is, with pride and egotism. So he would talk about, the fact that he was very much aware that because of the fact that he was not perfect, his work could completely go down the drain if he was not aware and if he was not vigilant constantly with prayer and meditation and uplifting readings, so that he wouldn't fail at the very last age. I mean, Divaldo was 98 when he passed away, but even at 96, 95, 94, he would talk about this. And I'm not sure if you remember the end of an example that he used was an old clown at the circus, and there was a young one. There was an old clown and a young one. And they were going to walk the thread. You know how to call that thing? When you walk through a line? Yeah. And everybody came to see the clowns. And the young clown was very enthusiastic. And he's like, look at all these people. They came here to see me, right? Because he was still immature and he was still kind of building up to what he was to be. And he said, the old clown said, actually, they're here to see if I'm going to fall today. So this is the thing, how audiences are always applauding and giving props to mediums and writers and speakers and everything else. But there's always one person that is keeping out to see when somebody's going to fail. And Divaldo Franco, through, Joana de Angelis, will always remind them to be faithful to the mandate and to Jesus, so that the work would not be compromised.
Thank you very much.
I would say he was successful.
And just to finish on this thought, right? If you want to look for the true missionaries, look for their humility. They will never recognize they are missionaries. If they say they are on a mission, they're not.
That's a great, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I couldn't have asked for a better ending of our panel here. So
We couldn't ask for a better moderator.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think I talk about you. Thank you so much. So what a feast we got here. João talked to us about the basis of mediumship and the bridge that it is between the physical and the spiritual realms. Andrea, talked to us about how much of a school this practice is, this faculty is, and how much it causes us to improve. And Peter gave us a lot of really good tools on how to make sure that the message that we get from these communications, for example, are true light, right? And that we don't fall on the traps, into the traps that are out there for us. And a great example, we're gonna, actually, it makes me a little emotional just to remember Divaldo, right? It's our first year without him. It's very hard for many of us to continue on, but his spirit is very strong and is very present and continues to inspire. So with that, I want to thank my fantastic panel and all of you for your attention. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now, more good news. Keep those questions coming because you're going to have another Q&A soon. So we're now taking a 20 minutes break, a great chance to stretch your legs, catch up with your friends, and get ready for the exciting Q&A session coming just right after. Don't forget to check the great books for sale. This is your last break and your last chance to buy, as you're going to close the sales by the end of the symposium, okay? Enjoy your coffee break. We'll resume our activities here in the auditorium at 2:50 sharp, okay?
y'all have a good break? Good coffee? Yeah, ready to start? Okay, welcome back. We hope you're feeling refreshed and ready to continue. It's time for our next Q&A session with Marcelo Medeiros returning as moderator. Joining him are this afternoon's panelists, Lia Gouveia, Rebecca DaSilva, João Korngold, and Peter Hayes, ready to answer all of your questions. Marcelo, welcome.
Thank you so much, Claudia. And thank you again for coming back. We had a lot of questions, especially about mediumship. We'll do our best to try to answer all the questions, but in case we cannot do that, I already apologize again for that. But so let's start with one here for you, João. Andrea Luiz mentioned that in the future, there will be a mechanism to connect incarnated and disincarnated. What is your opinion about broadening this connection? And in case one day we do have this connection, like people connecting incarnate and discarnate all the time, what will be the role of the medium, or will we still have a medium?
Kardec says we are all mediums, right? In Spiritism, we use the term ostensive medium to differentiate all of us who are inspired, who are guided by spirits, but we don't produce the mediumistic phenomena. But as we are all mediums, this is going to continue evolving and developing, right? So the more we evolve, the better we'll be able to connect with the spiritual world. So I see one day that the mediumship that we'll have here will be a direct connection with the spiritual world, and we will no longer need to have special ostensive mediums, because we will all be mediums in the sense of this ability to connect with the spiritual world. But we are far away from that. Still, we need to evolve a lot.
So just connecting this thought to this other question, if the role of the medium will be different in a world of regeneration?
Initially, no. I still see we doing the work we are doing. And again, if you think about mediumship meeting according to Spiritism, we have very few. In a world of 8 billion people, we have, 1,000 people that work in mediumship meeting, 10,000 people, it's nothing, right? So first, we are going to have more of mediumship meetings throughout the world. And eventually, when we go to a world of regeneration, this will be part of the beginning of the world of regeneration. By the end of it, maybe it'll be different, but I don't see much of a change, just an evolution, better mediumship meetings.
Thank you. And Peter, you talked about all of us being medium and the difference between being an ostensive medium. So if a person thinks he or she is an ostensive medium and wants to develop that, what's the first step to do? What does this person need to do in order to develop this mediumship?
If there's a Spiritist center in your area, that person can certainly go to the Spiritist center and start to learn Spiritism. But the more one can study Spiritism in general, whether you do it online, it's even better, of course, to do it in person at a Spiritist center. But learn the basics of Spiritism, understand the general points it's making, and of course you can study mediumship in that process. But it's important fundamentally to know the basics of Spiritism. For instance, people who come to our center or any center and they are interested in mediumistic meetings, okay, but in order for someone to participate in a mediumistic meeting, you need to be familiar with the foundation of Spiritism. You probably need to spend easily a year at a center quite possibly longer. In Brazil, it's much longer than that, as I understand it. So you need to be conversant with the basics of Spiritism, and that becomes a vehicle for moral improvement and self-knowledge, which then allows you to understand how to navigate mediumship.
Thank you. Now let's go back a little bit to the first panel. Leah, do you think that mindfulness can help us to know ourselves and distinct which thoughts are ours and which one is coming from the spirit around us?
Absolutely. It's part of this self-knowledge, self-awareness. And then if we get to know ourselves, then it's easy to identify what comes from me and what comes from the outside, right? So if, let's say I normally have positive thoughts and suddenly I start having negative thoughts, I can easily identify that it does not come from me, right? So it's why it's so important to get to know yourself. And we need to understand that we are spiritual beings, so we are in constantly connection with the spiritual world. And talking about mediumship, knowing that we are all mediums in some degree, we are always in contact with them. Therefore, by affinity, we connect with different levels of spirits. So we cannot blame spirits when we, oh, I'm undergoing our obsession here. I open the channel, and by affinity, I attracted these spirits, which many times they are just old friends, you know, trying to have fun with us because they miss us, because they love us, you know. So it's up to us to invite them to follow a different path, right? And it's very, very important to get to know ourselves. And if I can add just another comment about the future of mediumship, I think it's going to be much more intuitive. And as we evolve and we are more in contact with the spiritual world, you know, our communication will be really mind to mind, you know, through prayer, through meditation, during our sleep time. So, but like João said, we are very far from this reality.
Thank you. And Rebecca, now one question for you is still talking about know thyself. This person sent this question to connecting two topics that we have in the Spirit's book, questions 909 and 919. They say here, the connection between, if you could talk a little bit about the connection between knowing yourself and our effort to change the things that we need to in order to develop our own consciousness. How can we connect this? Knowing thyself and having this willing to change what we need to.
First, we have to think about will as our engine. That is what is going to produce all our actions. So once we get in the right headspace, genuinely just mindfulness and sitting with yourself, you can take the steps to further plan things out. Through a plan, you can actually achieve your goals. So science has shown that multiple times. So little small habits that you instill in your day, ranging from like day-to-day interactions with people, all the way from long-term goals that you hope to achieve one day as a spiritist, but never forgetting that the will that you have is already inside of you. You just have to activate it. Be strong like you are, you know.
João, back to you about, again, about the education and mediumship. Can a medium learn all that they need to learn just by communicating with the spirit, or do they need to have theoretical mediumship training?
They need to study. Study, study, study. Discipline, discipline, discipline. You cannot safely work with your mediumship if you do not educate yourself. Everything in life is education, right? Kardec was an educator first and foremost. So for you to practice mediumship safely, you need to study, and study hard. Understand about how the communications work, how you yourself work as a medium, your sensations, your feelings, differentiating what's from yourself, what's from the spirits, to prevent or reduce animism, which is the communication from the medium itself. So, there is no shortcuts in mediumship. You have to study. And just a side note here. I know that there are some people out there doing mediumship meetings online. I don't think that's safe at all. I think it's very, very dangerous. But there are people doing that.
And we have another question. I think it's connected, of course, with study and education. So if either you or Peter could answer this one. Actually, it's a real situation here that the person sent to us. How to deal with the following situation. A medium is not being able to control the communication from a specific spirit during a mediumistic meeting. It causes pain and personal issues. The spirit is not willing to receive help, and the medium is suffering. And the person asks that the medium does not have experience.
I think, well, João, we can maybe both answer. I think João touched on the essential point that it's important that a person study a great deal. And it's also what Rebecca was just saying about knowing oneself. Generally speaking, interferences by spirits, if a medium is having an ongoing presence, it's usually because we've created an opening within ourselves that are allowing interference to occur. So it's easy to say this, I understand, but the more we work on understanding who we are, and the more we engage in regular study, repeated study, then the more we can begin to create a fortification around us. It's also a very good idea among the books of Spiritism to read the Gospel according to Spiritism all the time, because you start to improve the company around you. Sometimes the more we work on ourselves, the more we work on the environment around us without necessarily consciously trying to do it.
And just on what the medium is feeling, during the communication, is very normal that the medium will feel what the spirit is feeling. That's one of the characteristics of a medium, right? So the spirit is feeling pain somewhere, the medium can feel the same pain. The problem is when the spirit leaves, the medium continues feeling, it continues to be unbalanced. Then the medium needs to educate itself to learn how to control and to detach itself from the spirit that is communicating. But during the communication, it's normal. The medium is going to feel the feelings of the spirit.
I'd like to add to that in a mediumistic meeting, you need to have pass givers. Sometimes mediums need a pass. I should mention, however, that even though it's fine to give a medium a pass, if they need one to facilitate disconnecting from the spirit, then give the medium the pass. They do have to be careful not to turn that into a crutch in which becomes a regular habit. Always need a pass in order to feel better. But as João said, it's better not to let somebody go home after a mediumistic meeting if they still feel some kind of a connection from the spirit.
Now we have a more philosophical question for Leah and Rebecca. Is consciousness an element of the spirit, or is it the spirit itself?
So we see on the Spiritist literature that consciousness is really our thoughts, and we know this comes from the spirit, but it's not the spirit itself, but it is an attribute of the spirit, if I can say that, because as we evolve, we are going to evolve spiritually, but evolving also our thought process, right? And we have discussed today different ways to use these tools to help us go the way up. But just before passing to Rebecca, I just want to add one comment about mediumship here, which is mediumship with Jesus, meaning free of charge, with humility, right? Especially, and if our spirit center or group do not have the right conditions to have a mediumistic meeting, don't have it. It's better to just doing studies, and when the conditions are ready, then you can start having mediumistic meetings in person. You need to have, someone conducting these meetings. You need to have ostensive mediums, but also need to have, like he was mentioning, people that are going to support this with passes, with the vibrations, so humility, to recognize that we are not ready to have a mediumistic meeting in our centers yet. But it does not mean we are not spiritists. We can keep studying, we can keep improving ourselves, and when the right conditions arrive, then we can have our mediumistic meetings. Sorry, Rebecca, please.
No problem, no problem. Jumping back to that consciousness, I like to think of it exactly how it was stated earlier as that moral compass. It is a part of God. It is what is truly what we are meant to be. I kind of see it like as a lot of light inside of a big like boulder. Like more experiences you go, like it'll just go hammering at it, experience after experience, light will go shining until you fully develop that consciousness. So I think it is not part of the spirit itself, but it's ingrained in it from God.
If I just may add a little bit, we all learned that God, the creator of everything and everyone, it is inside of us like a tiny seed, just waiting for time and the right conditions to grow. And as we grow spiritually and we become more aware of everything, we raise consciousness, we are going to approach more and more to God, our creator, and immersed on this love, on this wave of thoughts that we are all interconnected, even though we do not feel yet.
So now I'll open the question to the four of you. We have one more question about this meeting. Is the moral conduct of the person who dialogue more important than the one of the medium? For example, the discarnate may not hear the one who is dialoguing if they feel that the person who is talking doesn't have enough moral conduct.
Well, we are all imperfect spirits, right? The communicating spirits, they sometimes they know our limitations and they use our limitations to attack us. But the role of the dialoguer is to focus on the spirit that is communicating. We are not there to discuss the personal problems of the dialoguer. We are there to help and assist the spirit. So a dialoguer that has some experience will learn that you move away from discussing about yourself and you go back to the spirit, and it's just humility. You don't need to argue with the spirit. You just say, I'm an imperfect spirit. I know my limitations, but we are here to try to deal with your problems, your situation, to find a way to help you. We're not talking about me here, but sometimes there are a lot of spirits that are much smarter than us. So we have to go through a different route, a different approach.
And can it also help in a few cases the spirit to connect with the dialoguer? For example, if they see they're struggling, they have the same problems, for example, they can can help to have this connection and for them to accept the help.
I think Andreia mentioned right when you are talking to the spirit and you are looking at yourself and you are saying something that you know you yourself is not able to do it yet, right? That requires humility. But again, the role there is to help and assist the spirit. So it is important to find a way to reach the spirit, and there is not a rule book for that. It's learning, understanding, using the gospel, which is as Peter say, a wonderful instrument, but it comes with experience. It comes with knowing who you are and what are your abilities and your shortcomings.
And we have a question here about the language, as we have, for example, many people whose English is not first language working here in the US with Spiritism, in the Spiritist, in mediumistic meetings. Is language a barrier for mediumship communication for those who are in another country? Does it change anything on the way they talk to the spirits and the way the spirits are open to receive this help?
Language doesn't have to be a barrier. It depends on the comfort level of the individual. I work with people whose language, their first language is not English, but they speak well enough that when they give passivities, for instance, they can generally communicate sufficiently. Sometimes there may be a medium who doesn't feel comfortable enough doing that, so you need to respect that as well. So it really depends on the medium.
And we have to understand that we have the assistance of the spiritual benefactors, the directors of the meeting. So ideally, the meeting should be in the language of the country, right? If it's here in the US, should be in English, unless it's in Miami, that can be in Spanish, right? So why? Because most spirits here speak English, and we learn in Spiritism that we communicate through thought, but we're not there yet. And the spirits that are communicating, suffering spirits, they need to listen. So we need to speak in our language. And if we do it in Portuguese, I know there are many centers that do it in Portuguese, you are only able to receive spirits that speak Portuguese. And, it's work, it helps, it's important, it's better than not having it. But, we live in this country, we should try to do everything as much as possible in the language of the country. But I always tell people when they do the gospel at home, even if they do by themselves, I ask them to do in English, because then you can attract more spirits to be helped and assisted on your gospel at home. If you do your gospel in Portuguese, only the ones that understand Portuguese will come. And there are many more that understand English here in this country so far.
And I think one last question that we have: how to minimize and mitigate the risk of fascination amongst the medium, especially for newly formed groups?
The best way to minimize fascination is emotional honesty. The mediums need to have the humility to understand the difference between when ideas are coming from someone else versus them. They, again, need to study. And in post-discussion meetings of mediumistic groups, if there is a feeling that maybe fascination is taking root within a mediumistic meeting, they need to be able to talk about that. One general point is that it's always important to have humility when doing any kind of mediumistic work. So if we need to listen to what other people are telling us, we have to be open to that.
That's important. Many times people fear to talk about that or even to bring up the topic of fascination, but you need to be open and to have confidence in it.
Well, it's like what João was saying about counseling. If a spirit manages to challenge us, you can acknowledge, yes, we too have our faults. We cannot be afraid to admit when we have flaws, because we all have them.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, João Korngold, Rebecca DaSilva, Peter Hayes, and Via Gouveia for the panels and this talk. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. As we recognize ourselves as immortal spirits, the journey of awakening and finding the right path for growth becomes a rewarding challenge. We are pleased to introduce Dan Assisi, who will share his reflections on the future of the consciousness, challenge, growth, and brighter future. Dan Assisi is an author of the international speaker who has shared insights of spirituality in over 60 cities across 4 continents, known for combining depth with humor. Dan offers a thoughtful approach that reminds audience of their spiritual nature. He's a founding member of the Spiritist Institute and the California Spirits Association, and hosts the Spiritist Conversation podcast. Welcome, Dan.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It is great to be here again and see all of you. It really is. So let's dive in, shall we? We've spent the whole day together talking about many different things, and I want to take you to Anza Borrego Desert. You may not have heard of it, but the Anza Borrego Desert National Park. It is the 3rd largest national park in the country. It is the largest national park in California. It is huge. It's in Southern California. And it looks like this. It looks like a desert because that's what it is. It's 500 miles of dusty roads, 650,000 acres of desert. But you might be asking, then why are we talking about deserts when we are really meaning to talk about the evolution of consciousness? Well, because there is something magical about Anza Borrego Desert every once in a while that really ought to capture our attention. It is the super bloom. When the conditions are right, when there is a good amount of rain in the winter and the temperature in the spring is warm enough to awaken the seeds that lie dormant in the desert, this happens. A multitude of flowers blossom. And I wonder if there isn't a lesson for us there. Maybe we can make our own parable. The Anza Borrego Desert National Park parable. Maybe that's not a good name. Maybe we should know we're going to. How about the super bloom of consciousness? Right? Are there lessons that we can take with the knowledge that we have that we can apply to this incredible phenomena so that we can go from this, our consciousness today that perhaps is devoid of flowers, and the world that is also very arid, to this, where our internal consciousness gets to bloom in all its majesty, and the world that we live in also benefits from all this beauty? Can we tap then into our super bloom of consciousness and learn some lessons with, I say with, the incredible wisdom that Spiritism brings us? Clearly, I am biased. Clearly. I love Spiritism because it offers a way for us to understand the world with different lenses. When we put this on, we can see things that we did not see before in our everyday life, because now we know about consciousness, reincarnation, mediumship, the interaction between the both sides of life, the immortality of the spirit, and all these tools that we have. But how can we use all of this to develop our own consciousness and live in a world that is fundamentally better than the one that we find ourselves in? That's what we try to do. And so what I propose we do is we take some minutes to talk about 5 takeaways from our super bloom of consciousness that we can apply to our daily lives. Why 5 takeaways? Well, because I was told that if you give people numbers and make lists, they pay attention. So you tell me if this is going to work. But we are going to revisit 5 things that hopefully can help us as we expand this allegory, this metaphor, this parable into our lives to make our consciousness bloom like the Anza Borrego Desert. Does that make sense? So let's dive in. The first lesson that comes to mind is that to make flowers bloom, to make our consciousness evolve, we need the right conditions. Just like it happened in Anza Borrego, what blooms depends on the conditions you create. And here's the fascinating thing about this. Depending on how much water comes that year and what temperatures in the spring, the seeds that are in the soil develop in different ways. Some seeds don't develop if there's a lot of water, others do. Some of them need water and abundant heat. So the type of flowers that you will find in a super bloom, when there is one, are the consequence of the water and the sun in different levels in different years. So that begs the question of what kind of conditions do we need to facilitate in our lives to develop the kind of flowers that we want to see in our garden of consciousness. Let's break it down. What could be the elements of a super bloom? Well, we have first, as obviously stated here, we have a temperature, the rain, the soil, and the seeds. We can draw a parallel, right? If we look at the soil and the seeds, we can say that the soil and the seeds are us. They are our experiences. We are the soil, and the seeds are our potential and our experiences in our lives that lie dormant. We can also go on and say that the sun and the temperature represent the external factors that we cannot control. How the weather is, if it's going to rain or not, how much heat. These are elements of nature. Much like we can make a bridge to this planetary transition that we're going on and the changes in the world and wars and all. These external factors, they're coming at us. They influence us. They bring heat to us, and we don't know how to deal with that. We can try to shade ourselves from it, but ultimately we cannot change those things. They are going to be there. These factors are going to come and affect us. We can't change the soil either, not at first at least. And we can change the experience and the seeds that we have there, not yet at first. We can try to bring the soil away, put new soil in. It takes time. But even if it did, it still would not make us better gardeners. So we have to learn how to change our soil. But there is one component here that we sort of can control, which is the amount of water that goes into the garden. We can equate the water to our intentions and to our efforts. How much effort and how we direct to the soil and the plants that we have. And by the way, the plants are obvious here, right? They are our consciousness, they are our habits, they are our behaviors, the things that have come from what we had in us that were exposed to external conditions and were fed by our intentions that develop in a specific way. Are you with me so far? All right. So, what other lessons can we take here, knowing that the right conditions will suscitate development of specific flowers in our lives, and therefore, by consequence, in our consciousness? Well, another piece that we can take into consideration is that good gardeners focus on what they can't control. That's because gardening is inside work. It's not outside work. What do I mean by that? It is about you knowing how you can bring change to the soil that you have. Can you change the sun? No. Can you put more water? Yes. Can you change the soil? No. So to really work on our consciousness is to understand that we cannot control the external factors to our life. We cannot change other people. We cannot change the way the world works. We cannot convince other people of our political beliefs. They can't convince us really if we don't let them. We cannot really change how our relationships work by making other people like us. We can only live through them through our own intentions and efforts. So we got to focus on that which we can control, barely, which is what? Ourselves. Our intentions and our thoughts. our will, and all these wonderful things that we have been talking about here today. That's what we can control. So that is what we ought to focus on when we're talking about expanding our consciousness. It's not about changing other people's perspective. It's not complaining about the world. It is finding out what is it that we can do to ourselves to adjust to the external factors and the conditions that we have in our lives. It's an inside job. It's not about changing the world without. It's about changing the world within. That's what makes it so. But that's what good governors do. And what else? What else can we learn in a short period of time where we are going to zoom to the super bloom of consciousness? Well, we're going to also learn that good gardeners must know their soil. If you don't know what soil you're working with and what lies beneath, how can you decide and help facilitate the seeds that are dormant? How are you going to grow roses if you don't know if roses are there to begin with? So we must dive into the soil. And who is the soil? What is the soil? Us. We have to get to know ourselves. We have to. That is the only way you will be able to grow that which you want. If you don't know where you're going from, you can't possibly figure out where you're going to end up at. Which ways are you going to take? And this is where Spiritism really lends itself to the task. Let's expand our model here ever so slightly. We talked about how the rain could be equated with the intention and effort that we can bring to bear to changing our consciousness. We talked about how the sun could symbolize the external factors that we cannot control, the anger in the world, the hatred, intolerance. Those things are going to be there no matter what. We talked about the experiences being our seeds in the soil. But now we can further develop our model by bringing some interesting people here. First of all, one of them is that young man, not so young there in the corner, and I place them that so they can look at me, make sure that I'm not saying anything I shouldn't, right? So that's why they're in the corner there. But the first one is Carl Gustav Jung. And he brings us the idea of the conscious and the unconscious in a spiritual perspective, which we connect best to our understanding of reincarnation and spirit through the works of Joanna de Angelis, who takes us to the teachings that we are so familiar that were brought forth by Kardec. So when we add this to the layer, what we see is something interesting. We can now look at the soil and we can make a poetic analogy here and say what? We can say that what we can see on top of the soil is our consciousness, is what is conscious to us. We can see the flowers. We know they're there. But there are things underneath that we don't know what they are. That is our unconscious. But we need to know how to work the soil. So then, how can I possibly know what I don't know? How can I find out what is at the bottom of the soil when I don't know what's at the bottom beneath the soil? Well, if we are paying attention and if we are working through our own development and if we dedicate the intention and effort, we can find out what's under the soil by looking to what is above the soil. If you see the flowers there are in your garden today, you can surmise what seeds are underneath. And so, to give you an example, let's say that I am a bit intolerant and impatient. And as I look towards that, and I see that flower in my consciousness, I say, why is there a seed of impatience in my conscious? What experiences did I have in the past that have led to germinate this specific kind of behavior in action? I might not be able to precise it, but maybe I had experiences in the past where I was used to yielding power and people bent over what I wanted. And I felt that it was my right to just demand that of people. Maybe those seeds are in my past. But the important thing is that what I want for my future? If that is a flower of my consciousness now, what kind of intention and effort, what kind of water will I put so that those seeds don't germinate again? What kind of effort will I employ so that I can take that out of my conscious behavior and take it further? You see what I'm saying? And with Spiritism, we go farther because we know that our unconscious is also the result of our many lifetimes together. It is not just this life. So we have the ability to try to understand what is unknown so that we may better expand our perception. And when we have more information of what we have to work with, we can decide what flowers we want. Jung has a really powerful quote that we can easily apply to our lives, which is, if you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life and you will call it faith. That is to say, if you don't look into yourself and your habits and why you behave the way you behave, you will not change anything and not understand why you're given the hand that you're given, and you will think that cannot be changed. That's just how it is. But through Spiritism and reincarnation and free will and cause and consequence, we know that we can change our actions. So the more we dig into who we are and all those things that we heard here, the more we can bring that which we did not know about ourselves to the forefront of our minds. And now I know that I'm impatient. So I will be on the lookout for that. And I will choose a different way to act because I am aware of the problem. Does that make sense? So diving into who we are is a fundamental process of knowing who we want to become. Otherwise, we are just going to think that we've been dealt a bad life or bad circumstances and there's nothing we can do about it. But there are so many things we can do about it because we are an immortal spirit that is making choices every single day. And so we can begin to sow the seeds for our next day, for our next month, for our next life, to have a different garden. All it takes is that effort and that desire. And what else, as our time begins to run out, what else could we do that might be interesting and inspiring to us on our quest to populate the super bloom of our consciousness in ourselves? Well, another thing that we can learn is that gardeners tend to their gardens. Gardening or developing our consciousness is not a one-time act. It's not something that we do just in one day and then we sit and wait. It is an everyday thing. Gardeners have to sow, they have to weed, and they landscape, which means we have to employ action, constant action. We have to decide what is it that we want. We have to remove the weeds of the flowers that we no longer want. And sometimes we have to shift from one side to the next. Maybe we need some landscaping in our lives. Maybe I'm really confident professionally, but I struggle with relationship confidence. But there are lessons that I can take from what I do at work that I can move with the right amount of effort and learn from through reflection into my relationships and vice versa. Maybe that intolerance that I have can be weeded out because I no longer want that. Maybe I am ready to sow something different that has not been in my garden before. Whatever it is, we need to act on it. And so in many different ways, there's 3 steps to change. There is awareness when we dive into our soil. Then there is practice when it feels sometimes uncomfortable to do the things that we don't know yet how to do. Right? It's when we're trying to be kind, we're trying to be nice. It doesn't feel natural just yet, but that's how we practice until we develop the habit and it becomes automatic. But it takes awareness. It takes practice. It takes a habit to really have that come out. And that is tending to our garden. And that is a wonderful perspective for us to take into consideration because we need to garden. We just need to. I think that we have realized that the world we live in and the changes that we want to see are not going to come if we wait. It is important for us to tend to our gardens. What else? What else can we learn in our short time together from our super bloom of consciousness parable / allegory / metaphor / whatever the heck you want to be that might enlighten our lives? Well,
One last thing here that we ought to remember too, not our list of 5, if you're counting, is that good gardeners know that the gardens can inspire. That is to say that the beauty that we create and that other creates can serve for each other. Sometimes we're so into the challenge of our gardens that we don't lift up our heads to realize that even though our consciousness has not reached the level that we desire, there are good things in there. There may be some flowers that, although small, albeit fragile, are already beautiful. Are you seeing the wonderful things that you have built over time? Are you able to stop and think about the conquests of your life? Are you able to see that in yourself? Or are you only looking at what's not working or the desert spots of your consciousness? And then there's a step further. Have you looked at the gardens beside yours to get that inspiration? Have you taken the time to be mesmerized by the beauty of the gardens of this world, of the people who have developed wonderful consciousness and can be examples for us? We talked about so many today. Of course, Paul, Mary of Magdalene, we have Gandhi, we have, in our Spiritist midst, wonderful examples like Chico Xavier, Xavier, and Divaldo Franco, who have shown by living it how to tend to their gardens and how beautiful their life can be if we do it. Are we getting inspired by that? Have we realized that there are gardens sitting next to us right now? Are you able to see the beauty of the garden next to you? Or are you just looking at the deserts? Can you look to the side, left and right, and see what's there? Are you able to see that which is beautiful in others and recognize that they are a garden in progress? Can you attend to the invitation that it is to tend to your garden? And I think that is the question here, isn't it, at the end of the day? How are you tending to the garden of your consciousness? What kind of conditions are you setting for yourselves on your daily life? What kind of focus do you have for the things that you want to change, add, prune, remove, relocate in your consciousness, in your life? How are you feeding it? How are you tending it? How are you getting inspired, and how are you inspiring? Because there is this gardener that has been speaking to us for ages and ages, the greatest spirit that has ever walked this earth, that showed us by example what it is to tend a garden that is lasting and inspiring, that with intention and desire and will and thought, directed his energies to showing us how to sow every single day of our lives so that we can find the peace and the beautiful garden that he had. So can we heed the call? Can we see the example and reinvent what it is that we want to achieve? Can we not wait for the world, but instead really just look of the world inside and decide that we can really take the helm of whatever change we want to see? Because when we work in our garden and we're truly immersed in it, it becomes a work of beauty that really inspires other people. And can you imagine what it would be like if all of us could reach inside of ourselves and spend some time developing that garden and following the footsteps of the greatest gardener of all times so that we can change our lives? What would you like to be different in your life? What kind of seeds do you want to sow? What is it that you want it to look like? Have you asked yourself those questions recently? You can do it through your own effort, through your own intention, your will, as you have been doing through many reincarnations, because you are an immortal spirit fated to be a great gardener like he was. And so that this does not become just an exercise
in hypothetical gardening, examples and symbolism, would you do me a favor? Reach under your chairs. Every single chair has something attached to it. And this could be a reminder of what is it that you can take away with you from here. These are symbolic seeds. These are symbolic seeds that you can sow in your life. Take them, exchange them, plant them, ignore them. It is up to you. But choose the flowers that you want to plant. Choose that which you want to instill in your consciousness. Choose whatever it is that you want to do and work on your soil. Focus, put your effort in, withstand the external factors, dive deep and take control of that which God has given you. And if you do, let's go make our super blooms, right? And I leave you with this. I leave you with a simple exercise. Imagine if all of us had our super blooms. How would your day look like? Because this is the future. Imagine that you wake up in the morning refreshed and you had enough to eat, because everybody has enough to eat in the new world because we take care of each other. You step out of your bed, you greet your loved ones who are next to you. You make your way to work, which you are excited for because it is meaningful work. Along the way, you find other gardeners who are also excited to go to work. You do not feel threatened by them. You feel energized because you know what's in their hearts and they're gardening too. And you smile to each other. You get to work. You solve difficult problems. You are fulfilled by what you have. You learn new things. You return home. You find those who you love. You share your experiences. And you have a fulfilled day. And you look forward to tomorrow because you get to do it again. That is the new era. That is what's possible when we get to know who we are and understand the immortality of ourselves and the blessings of God and the gifts that we have been granted as opportunities to develop ourselves every single day. And we're not alone. So what are we waiting for? Let's go out and take everything that we learn, take the seeds that you want to play, and let's go make our super bloom. God bless you. And until we see next time.
Well, thank you, Danielle, for such a beautiful and inspiring talk and for putting a big smile on our faces, right? It felt so good. Thank you so much. Now it's time for that joyful moment of the day. While we were here, our children and teens were engaged in a beautiful program designed especially for this event, shining our inner light, learning, love, kindness, and gratitude. Let's give a big thank you to the wonderful group of Spiritist educators who have been guiding our young participants. They are ready to share a glimpse of their amazing work. So let's welcome them with lots of love and a warm, enthusiastic round of applause.
Good afternoon. So before we start our presentation, we would like the help of you guys to help us to sing the song. So the lyrics in the screen, so we're gonna practice a little bit first before we play the song. And they're gonna help you
Ready?
I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Jesus. Jesus is the light. I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus is the light. I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus is the light. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Good job. Mine. I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. It's the light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. And Jesus. Jesus is the light. I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus is the light. I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus is the light. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Shine, let it shine, let it shine.
That was nice, wasn't it? Amazing, amazing. Your energy and enthusiasm were truly inspiring. Congratulations to all our kids and teens, and the teachers as well, and the musician. As we're near to the end of the 19th U.S. Spiritist Symposium, please stay with us a little longer for one of the final requests and a special invitation. Please take a moment to grab your phones and scan the QR code on the screen here to access our survey for this symposium. It's really important for us to have this survey fulfilled so we can improve and make it better and better and better. And let's do it together. So make sure to complete that before you leave so you can help us, okay? Thank you.
Okay, as we come close to the end of our 19th U.S. Spiritist Symposium, we want to extend our thanks to all volunteers from Michigan and from many states in the US. Let's give a round of applause to everyone who has worked together to make this event possible. We couldn't move on today before honoring someone very dear to all of us, Divaldo Franco. Over the years, he came to the United States many times, bringing light, love, and inspiration. His presence motivated workers, encouraged centers, and touched hearts in ways that we'll never forget. Now, from the spiritual realm, we feel him close, sharing in this banquet of love and fraternity. His legacy is alive today in his books, in his example, and in the seeds he planted here, and in his beautiful work at Mansão do Caminho. For everything he has done and continues to inspire, we say with deep gratitude, thank you, Divaldo. We miss you. We also thank all the participants of the symposium for this great energy you all brought to it. But before we say goodbye, let's call our friends from the Spiritist Federation of Florida, who will bring to us two great invitations. Please, welcome.
They send us up here crying, after development.
More than what you can see here. It's pretty much an invasion.
You are seated at an emergency exit. Please review the responsibilities for emergency exit seating on the back of the safety information card, located in the seat back in front of you. If you are unable or prefer not to perform these functions, just let us know and we'll find you another seat.
For almost 2 decades, hearts and minds from across the United States have come together, united by one purpose: to study, share, and live the teachings of Spiritism. In 2026, we celebrate a milestone, the 20th United States Spiritist Symposium. 20 years of spreading light through knowledge, 20 years of building bridges between souls, 20 years of fostering fraternity, unity, and love. From the East Coast to the West, from small study groups to thriving centers, Spiritist voices have echoed with wisdom, compassion, and hope. And now, we gather once again, in Florida, welcoming speakers from across the country with enriching discussions, uplifting moments, and special activities for our youth. Whether you've walked this path for years or are just beginning your journey, this event is for you. Come celebrate with us, learn, grow, connect, and be part of a movement that continues to shine brighter with each passing year. The 20th U.S. Spiritist Symposium, coming October 2026. Dates and location to be announced soon. We'll see you in Florida.
For having us, especially Michigan, for hosting the event this year. And we were very honored when Tanya asked us if we wanted to hold the 20th U.S. Spiritist Symposium in Florida. And we said yes before she even finished asking the invitation, So we are very proud to have some of our Florida workers and speakers and volunteers here on stage with us to invite you all to be in Florida, where it's warm, cozy, beaches, all that good stuff. in 2026. So we are working on the date. It's in October, and we'll most likely in Orlando. But if it's not, it's going to be in Miami, and we hope that you guys can join us. And just really quick, we're going to have our 15th annual event of Florida in Orlando next year as well. It's going to be April 11th and 12th, and it's the Age of Christ is our topic. We want to bring Christ back urgently. You know, as Joanna Giangeli states, we need him back urgently before we all fall into the abysm of negativity, pessimism. So we need him back, and we hope to count on you also to be there with us to watch some of the speakers. There will be simultaneous translations, and Leo Haddad and Gabe Faria have actually accepted the invitation to open for our youth. So you're also invited to come and watch them as they open our event on Sunday, April 12th. So hope to see you there.
So Florida, here we go. Next year's symposium is going to be unforgettable. Be sure to follow the USSF on social media for all the updates. Thank you for joining us. Travel safely, and we can't wait to see you in Florida. Thank you, everyone.
Vem também, querida, vem também.